terror, but sheer evil to the world. Evil that echoes the worst and matches, in some cases exceeds the worst atrocities of ISIS.
I was here predominantly to show solidarity to the Israeli people, to provide support to the Israeli government.
We've never seen such savagery in the history of the state. And they're even worse than ISIS. They're even worse than ISIS, and we need to treat them as such.
The horrors unleashed by the Hamas in Israel can't be described in words. Since the 7th of August, in fact, the 7th of October, over 3,000 lives have been lost on both the sides, with more number of casualties in Israel. Over 150 Israelis have been taken hostage by the Hamas. Chilling reports of how the Hamas brutalized children have shattered faith in humanity, and Israel describes the Hamas as a terror outfit worse than the ISIS. An angry Israel has vowed vengeance, ladies and gentlemen. Even as it is fire that is raining on Gaza Strip portion that is occupied by the Hamas, several Hamas strongholds have been struck. But that's not all. A Wall Street Journal report highlighted that Iran helped the Hamas plot attack on Israel over several weeks. Israel Defense Forces have confirmed that ISIS flags were brought into the country by the Hamas terrorists, and they were carrying them on their person. So does this not expose a dangerous continuum? A geopolitical game on the one hand and a fundamentalist terror ideology on the other. While nations prop up outfits like the Hamas, are they also breeding fundamentalist ideology that is a curse on humanity? Former NSA and diplomat Shiv Shankar Menon, who served in Israel, added and said that the Hamas strike may adversely affect the Middle East geopolitical scenario. Listen into his voice on a podcast.
I'd say considerable, since this kind of operation couldn't have been mounted without considerable planning, stocking, training, on a scale which I can't believe that nobody picked up, that the Israelis didn't pick it up with all their technology, their experience of intelligence, but also that the rest of the world didn't pick this up, because there's probably more than just Hamas within Gaza involved in this. There has to be much more. The regional consequences, there was a new Middle East in the process of being born, as it were. We've had the Abraham Accords, we've had movement, at least talks, and very detailed talks about a possible Saudi-Israeli rapprochement. We've seen movement in Saudi-Iranian relations in the last year. So things were moving in the Middle East, and I assume that this is designed actually to change that direction, to change the direction of political travel in the Middle East. And that must have entered into the calculus. Whether it's intended, how many of these movements it will affect, it will certainly postpone much of this. But how long this has an effect, whether it represents a fundamental shift in the politics or not, I'm not sure. Some people talk about this having the same effects as the Yom Kippur War. I'm not sure, because Sadat went into that war in order to make peace, and he had enough of a victory to be able to make peace thereafter. I'm not sure that Hamas or their sponsors have gone into this seeking peace. Well, Mr. Prime Minister Modi responded immediately by expressing his shock at these terrorist attacks and by saying that we stand in solidarity with Israel. I think most of the global south, China, Russia, others have spoken about the need for restraint on both sides and tried to make balanced sort of statements. But frankly, this is a case where Israel has been attacked by terrorism. And so, from my point of view, I mean, I think what Prime Minister Modi said is correct. This is the right reaction, I think. You can't equate both sides when one side is the victim and the other is the attacker.
And can we in any way say that a terrorist attack or a terrorist outfit actually voices or represents a particular group which is asking for a separate state? So the Israel-Palestine issue is different. The Hamas dastardly attacks are different. And I think that's the line that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has very clearly drawn. No act of terror can be condoned, or there can be no balancing act there. Let's go across to our guests and understand the new geopolitical dynamic here. Tammy Ben-Haim, Consul General of Israel for the south of Bharat, is with us. Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti ji is also there, former Secretary, MEA, and also former Deputy Chief of Mission, Tel Aviv in Israel, and Professor Brahma Chalani, Strategic Affairs Expert. My namaste to everybody. Thank you very, very much. Tammy Ben-Haim, thank you for speaking with us, and I hope most of your loved ones near and dear are close, because I know everybody has lost someone they know in Israel this time around. The larger comment about what Ayatollah Khomeini has come out and said. Reports are suggesting he has said he would like to kiss the hands of the attackers. That's the one aspect. On the other hand, the Israeli Defense Forces have said that ISIS flags have been seen at the hands of these Hamas terrorists. What does this imply?
It implies, if you ask, it implies what we know. For years now, we know that Iran's regime, who has one of their goals in mind, is to annihilate the state of Israel. And Hamas is a terror organization that has only one goal in mind: to annihilate Israel, to destroy Israel, to kill Israelis and kill Jews. And for years, we've been seeing it and saying it, that Iran is supplying Hamas, not just Hamas in our area, they're supplying other terrorist organizations. But the funding, the weapons, the training that they get, also in Iran itself, the assistance they get in building weapons as well, is definitely, most of it comes from the Iranian regime.
Does this also then derail any aspect of realignment in the Middle East?
I'm assuming, and we can assume all of us, that a terror group wants, the same as it wants to ruin the regular fabric of normal life, wants to make citizens scared and worried and terrorized. They would like to have upheaval. They want to have war. They want to have the new regime or the new alliances maybe shaken. But I don't think they will be able to do so. I don't think they will be able to do so, as the relationships are strong, and some are becoming hopefully stronger. But it's also an issue of standing up against terrorism. Many countries in the world, India included, have suffered terror attacks.
Yes.
They know what the pain of terror is, and they know that we must send a very clear international message that this type of terror, that any terror, will not be condoned. We will fight against it. Israel at the moment will fight Hamas until Hamas is destroyed. But it's a message that Israel is sending because Hamas sits on our borders. But this is a message that every country that worries about its citizens, that is worried about the safety and security of its citizens, must stand behind and must make a very clear statement that terror will not be allowed. The terror must be stopped.
Iran has called upon and Ayatollah Khomeini has actually made this voice, raised this, and he's asked the Arab nations, the Muslim nations, to come together against a Zionist Israel. That's his statement, not mine. On the other hand, over the last 2-3 years, there have been the Abraham Accords. Saudi Arabia, Israel, there has been a proximity. There has been conversation about developing this entire region. The India, Middle East, Europe corridor has been spoken about at the G20. A lot of progress was being made. My question to you, Tammy Ben-Haim, is, does this derail all of that, or is this going to impact all of that? And was Hamas propped up, and did these attacks happen with a larger intent, not just to hurt Israel, but to hurt this entire region?
It might have been one of their minor intentions. This is not the first terror attack we've experienced by Hamas. It's by far the worst, the most painful, the most heinous and barbaric. And we see it many things on social media because they themselves are putting it up on social media to dehumanize us. And for some, unexplainable I don't think we can even understand what they're doing. But no, it might have been one of their, side goals, or maybe they thought about it. Maybe it didn't seem to them well that the region is becoming, closer together and more closely knitted. But it shouldn't have any effect. UAE very, very clearly stood up against and made good statements against terrorism. Nobody is shifting. Nobody's changing due to a terror attack to appease what they're doing or help them gain their goal. There's no reason for anything to stop or be derailed or changed. And the suggestion, as you exactly said, with the India presidency of the G20, of doing a corridor from India through the Middle East and Israel into Greece and Europe, it's not a project that was planned for next week. And there's no reason for it to stop or slow down or not be talked about again because some terrorists in a terrorist organization, an internationally recognized terrorist organization, went on such a barbaric attack.
I salute the Israeli spirit and resolve, Tammy Benheim. Allow me to please open this discussion and the conversation and bring in Ambassador Chakravarti and also Brahma Chalani ji. And please feel free to weigh in, everybody. Ambassador Chakravarti, how would you read the current scenario and how do you see this playing out? Is this going to disrupt, derail? Was there a larger intention? One. Secondly, if Iran on the one hand, ISIS on the other, Hamas in the middle, this is a very dangerous continuum, and we are seeing this thought perpetrate across the globe. Multiple outfits have been saying the same lines on different soil.
I tend to believe that there is some coordination between these terrorist organizations. Hezbollah, Hamas, ISIS, and other groups, which all, by the way, have a common patron, and that is Iran. Now, I think there has been an Iranian role in this. Maybe not the micro details, but an overall planning and help, etc. To build this huge, arsenal of rockets and all these things. But I don't think Iran was probably involved in selecting the date, because the date itself betrays the fact that it was a decision that must have been made by Hamas, because almost 50 years of the Yom Kippur War, almost on the same day that this attack was launched. Now, one other thing I want to say, that the Yom Kippur War was different. It was a war between sovereign nations, Egypt, Syria, and Israel. And we all know the history of that. But this is not the same case. Hamas is a identified terrorist organization. It does not represent the Palestinians. The Al-Fatah group, or the Palestinian Authority, is officially recognized as the true representative of the Palestinians. So hence, Hamas has to be looked at and treated as a terrorist organization. It's another matter that they managed to capture Gaza. And of course, after the 2006 election, there has been no election. But as you know, these organizations don't want elections. Once they are in power, they want to stay there forever. And they get money. They get money, external funding. We all know where the funding comes from. I don't want to name names. And the other thing I believe is that there was this probably, this is my own personal view, that there was probably this fear growing that our cause is becoming irrelevant in the international agenda, and that we have to do something to bring it back, and also affect the geopolitics of the region, where we have seen some very, very, very encouraging developments like the Abraham Accords and the perhaps even a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia, which we thought was imminent, but now probably has to wait. One thing I must say, that you see, the rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Israel puts a lot of Muslim countries in a very difficult situation, because they can't criticize Saudi Arabia, and their feeling of that, look, even Saudis have done it, so why not us? That's the kind of feeling that would grow, and that would normalize things for Israel in the long term. So my feeling is that was also a factor. And Iran also did not like this approach. Now, Iran and Hamas, by the way, share an objective. That is the destruction of Israel. It is in Hamas's charter. If you read the charter, it is very much there. And Iran has been openly saying this for a very long time. So Iran also probably now feels a bit isolated from the broad mainstream of geopolitics that has the trend that we have noticed.
Right. Professor Brahmachalani, and then we'll go back to Tammy Benham. Yeah.
Israel is waging war in self-defense after coming under attack. But I think the geopolitics of the region will be shaped largely by the Israeli military response. The Hamas terror offensive was unprecedented, it was unparalleled. But I think how Israel wages the war, the future trajectory of the region. For one thing, it's impossible to destroy Hamas's ideology, nor can the aspirations of Palestinians for an independent state be destroyed. So it very much boils down to what are Israel's military objectives. Israel needs to avoid getting trapped in a quagmire in Gaza. Israel spent 15 years in a quagmire in southern Lebanon. And then just the way the Americans, after battling a terrorist militia in Afghanistan, withdrew in humiliation from Afghanistan, the Israelis were forced to withdraw in a very humiliating manner from southern Lebanon. Getting mired in a Gaza quagmire is not in Israel's interest. If you go back to what happened after 9/11, there was such anger in the US that for the next 2 decades, the US was involved in unending wars, leaving a trail of failed states. Israel should not make the same mistake. It should have clearly defined military objectives. It should not get into a Gaza trap. It should meaningfully degrade the capability of Hamas so that Hamas no longer poses a real threat to the Israeli state. But given the unfolding humanitarian situation in Gaza, Israel has to be very careful because the international headlines can change very quickly. The sympathy for Israel can evaporate, the global sympathy. So it's very important for Israel to act in a prudent manner to underpin its long-term interests. After all, it's the victim of terror. It has to act in a very responsible, in a far-sighted manner, because it is located in a very troubled neighborhood. That neighborhood will remain troubled for Israel in the years to come. So it has to ensure that the troubled neighborhood does not become worse for Israel.
Multiple challenges there. You are the victim, but you have to be punitive. You've got to be smart, and it should not turn around. Tammy Benham, would you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I agree with the words responsible and looking at the long run. But I agree, but I think Mr. Chakravarti said it very well. Israel left Gaza in 2005. Totally left it. Army, people who were living, we dismantled temples, we dismantled burial grounds, and we left Gaza. And since 2007, again, as was said, there were some internal elections in the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas ended up shooting and killing some of their political rivals in order to get control of Gaza. So we've been trying to avoid this quagmire, as it was called, and we've had many attacks in these past 18 years. And we've always tried to be as responsible as we always are as possible and lower Hamas's capabilities. But now they have shown us that lowering their capabilities doesn't help. They've been using all the funding, the direct funding for the terror from the Iranian regime, but also international funding that they get, international supplies that they get. And instead of helping and building Gaza for its people, they've been spending all their time, all their resources, all their energy, arming themselves up, training themselves up, building infrastructure for the sole reason of destroying Israel. So we have to be responsible and we have to look at the long run. And because we're doing that, we're going to make sure this time that Hamas's infrastructure, its weapon laying sites, it's all their weapon stores, their infrastructure, their commanders' command posts, their centers are all destroyed. And by the way, I just want to mention the 3 goals we have here because we have been talking. And by the way, it's still an ongoing terror attack. Because as we are speaking, and I don't know if you heard my phone buzz or not,
Yes, I
there are
did.
red alerts going on in Israel as we are speaking because the Hamas is still shooting rockets into towns and at citizens in the south, where they also infiltrated over 1,000 terrorists on the ground. But they're also shooting into the middle of Israel. They're shooting at Tel Aviv, they're shooting in central Israel, they're shooting to Jerusalem, which is one of the holy sites for the Muslims as well. And they're just indiscriminately shooting rockets into it. So I want to be very clear. Our goals are first and foremost to make sure that everybody in Israel is secure and safe. Second, to free the hostages that Hamas is holding and brutalizing again as we are speaking now here.
Yeah.
And third, to make sure that Hamas is devastated and that Hamas cannot, even if the ideology is still there and if somebody still holds this crazed ideology, they are not able to strike such an attack again against Israel and against its people.
You're very well elucidated there, but you will have to put a timeline to do it and do it sooner than later. I think that's where the concern is, that it should not become a never-ending war again, because then the law of attrition will play against you and play against Israel and its people. That's what would happen. To the gentleman and the lady, thank you very, very much. We'll continue to track the story. Have to take a very, very short break at this point. When we come back, we turn the spotlight closer home. It's a landmark moment for us, ladies and gentlemen, over the coming weekend, because we will be laying the grounds for not just cricket's entry into the Olympics, but the Olympics coming to Bharat very soon. Stay with us. Back on the right stand with, ladies and gentlemen, what is something which will be landmark and historical for us. The excitement is building among the sports fraternity and enthusiasts in Bharat as Mumbai prepares to host the 141st session of the International Olympic Committee from the 15th of October till the 17th. The inaugural ceremony will be on the 14th of October. This is 40 years after this event was hosted in Delhi back in 1983. And let me tell you, during the 139th session in February 2021, it was a team led by IOC member Mrs. Neeta Ambani, Sports Minister now Anurag Thakur and Mr. Narendra Batra that made a very, very strong pitch for Mumbai to be the host for this session. And it met with nearly 99% ayes or approvals for this to happen. This annual gathering of the IOC members holds the key to crucial decisions regarding the future of international sporting events, the venues, changes within the Olympic Charter, and of course, how to further the Olympic movement across the world. The International Olympic Committee's return to Bharat actually paves the way for our bid, not just to host the Olympics, but also for this crucial decision to be taken where the cricket will feature in the Olympics after 128 years in Las Vegas in 2028. Mrs. Neeta Mukesh Ambani has been at the forefront of championing our potential in building Bharat as a sports powerhouse and shining the spotlight on our nation. Elected to the IOC back in 2016, she is the first Indian woman to become a member of the IOC and has since demonstrated deep and unwavering commitment to strengthening India's contribution to the Olympic movement. She is part of 3 important commissions, including the running of the Olympic Channel and also the one that the committee that manages culture and heritage, among the other ones. And she's been really at the forefront of championing Bharat's cause. We'll have a very, very special panel of achievers across the board and also those who are part of this entire Olympic movement. First up, Adil Sumariwala, AFI President and World Athletics, and Gaurav Kalra, Sports Analyst. Namaste, gentlemen. This weekend should bring us happy tidings, but Mr. Sumariwala, let me also congratulate you and also our team of athletes for some phenomenal performance at the track and field at the Asian Games. And that only augurs well for us as we tell the world that Bharat is ready.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we are ready.
How do you see our quest to host the Olympics? And do you believe this is the right time? The effort that's gone in to not just host the IOC session, but also tell the world that they should look towards India? Mr. Sumariwala?
I think we are right there. I would have been happier if it was even 4 years earlier in 32, but that's already given out. India is a new India. We are absolutely on the verge of becoming a sporting powerhouse, and this is absolutely the right time to get the games. We have enough time to prepare. We have enough time to get our athletes ready, to get the infrastructure ready. So we are absolutely ready and raring to bid for the games.
Mrs. Neeta Ambani, not just part of the Reliance Foundation, a very strong voice within the corporate India, but also now part of the International Olympic Committee. Does this also bring about a departure, Mr. Sumariwala, that there is a corporate voice that is pushing a nation's cause and also championing the Olympic movement?
No, absolutely. I think you need all sorts of people. You need sports persons, you need corporate support, you need government support. And then when all of this comes together, that is what is a winning combination. And if you see our results at the Asian Games, it's absolutely because the government support to the federations, the government support to the athletes. We created an ecosystem. I'm part of the Mission Olympic cell set up by the government of India, where we were looking at all the athletes, monitoring their performances, make sure that they got everything they needed, supported the federations when they asked for coaches, when they asked for athletes to go abroad for training, bring in sports sciences. So this is the winning combination when we all come together to make it Team India, and that is what we did at the Asian Games. And everybody saw the results. And It was just that I think we could have got at least 20 more medals, but that's another story for another day.
Well, 20 more medals will also come. 100 was looked far and beyond, but 100 par kar liye. 107 medals have come, and one of the golden boys and somebody who's championed Bharat's cause in track and field is with us live. Neeraj Chopra, namaste. आपको फिर से बहुत-बहुत मुबारकबाद.
नमस्ते जी, थैंक यू. कैसे हैं? नमस्ते सर, कैसे हो?
मैं तो बहुत ठीक हूँ. आपको देखकर और खुश हो गया. सबसे बड़ी बात थी कि ओलंपिक्स भारत में आ सकता है. आदिल सुमारीवाला, गौरव कालरा हमारे साथ हैं. नीरज, आप एक बात बताइए कि ओलंपिक्स भारत में खेला जाए, 2036 की हम उम्मीद लगाए बैठे हैं. आपको लगता है ये हो सकता है?
बिल्कुल जी, कुछ भी पॉसिबल है. जिस हिसाब से हमारा इंडिया का सब कुछ बदल रहा है स्पोर्ट्स में, और जिस तरीके से रिजल्ट्स आ रहे हैं, जिस तरीके से गवर्नमेंट पुश कर रही है, फेडरेशंस, और जिस तरीके से प्राइवेट सेक्टर पुश कर रहे हैं, और जब भी हम कहीं खेलने जाते हैं, ना केवल एथलेटिक्स, जो भी सभी एथलीट्स से बात होती है, खेलते हैं, तो एक वो एथलीट्स की पहचान बन चुकी है वर्ल्ड क्लास की. तो बिल्कुल कुछ भी हो सकता है. और हमने ऑलरेडी इतने 6 एशियन गेम्स, कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स करवाए हैं, तो बिल्कुल ओलंपिक्स भी बिल्कुल पॉसिबल है. और मेरा एक ही ड्रीम है कि मैं इंडिया में जरूर देखना चाहूंगा ओलंपिक्स होते हुए.
अभी ये मुंबई में शुरू होने वाला है ओलंपिक्स का. इंटरनेशनल ओलंपिक कमेटी की मीटिंग है. नीता अंबानी जी भारत की तरफ से 2016 से हमारी मेंबर है IOC में. आपको क्या लगता है कि जो कॉर्पोरेट पुश है उसकी वजह से हम एक अच्छी दावेदारी भी रख सकते हैं, क्योंकि सरकार के साथ साथ अब कॉर्पोरेट पुश भी है और एक हमने भूमिका भी बनाई है?
बिल्कुल जी, जैसा मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले कहा था कि गवर्नमेंट तो कर रही है, कॉर्पोरेट भी बहुत ज्यादा पुश कर रहे हैं और स्पोर्ट्स की तरफ ध्यान दे रहे हैं. और जिस तरीके से वो न केवल ओलंपिक्स के लिए, लेकिन जिस तरीके से वो अलग अलग स्पोर्ट्स में धीरे धीरे उभर रहे हैं, या धीरे धीरे कुछ सेंटर्स बना रहे हैं और एथलीट्स को स्पॉन्सर कर रहे हैं, वो भी बहुत सराहनीय कदम है. और जिस तरीके से फेडरेशंस के साथ मिलकर काम कर रहे हैं, तो वो कहीं ना कहीं मुझे लगता है कि जो ये शुरुआत हुई है बहुत ही अच्छी है. बिल्कुल इसमें कुछ टाइम लगता है, लेकिन फिर भी मुझे लगता है कि 2036 के लिए हमारे पास काफी टाइम है, और बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जो धीरे धीरे करके बिल्कुल ठीक हो जाएंगी.
बहुत सारे स्पोर्ट्स हैं जो ओलंपिक्स में शामिल हैं, पर एक स्पोर्ट है जो अभी तक दावेदारी कर रहा है, मौका नहीं मिला है. आपको लगता है क्रिकेट को शुमार कर लेना चाहिए 2028 के लिए? नीरज
जी, बिल्कुल काफी पुश कर रहे हैं. और एज ए इंडियन मेरा मतलब मुझे यही लगता है कि क्रिकेट, जिस तरीके से हमारी टीम है और जिस तरीके से कॉमनवेल्थ में या एशियन गेम्स में क्रिकेट हुआ है, और हमारे लोगों ने सपोर्ट किया और सभी एथलीट्स मिलजुल के वहां पे रहे, तो वो एक बहुत ही अच्छा एक कदम होगा. सभी स्पोर्ट्स को एक तरीके से, जैसे हम इंडिया में बोलते हैं कि हमेशा क्रिकेट को लोग देखते हैं, क्रिकेट को सपोर्ट करते हैं, तो ओलंपिक्स में आने से है कि हाँ. और एक बात और होती है कि लोग बोलते हैं कि क्रिकेट को बस इतनी कंट्रीज खेलती हैं, तो सबसे पहली बात तो कि वर्ल्ड वाइड स्पोर्ट्स को बढ़ावा मिला है क्रिकेट को. दूसरी बात है कि जो ये बात है कि सिर्फ क्रिकेट को सपोर्ट करते हैं, तो जब क्रिकेट ओलंपिक्स में जाएगा और बाकी स्पोर्ट्स भी होंगे, तो सभी को इक्वल सपोर्ट मिलेगा. और सबसे अच्छा चेंज ही होगी, सभी स्पोर्ट्स इक्वल चले, सभी एथलीट जो मेहनत करते हैं अपनी कंट्री के लिए, जीतते हैं, तो उन सभी को एक इक्वल तरीके का एक रिस्पेक्ट और दर्जा मिलना चाहिए.
लोगों का कहना है 2 गोल्ड फिर पक्के हो जाएंगे, एक जैवलिन में और एक क्रिकेट में.
सर, मैं जैसे हमेशा ऐसे ही बोलता हूँ कि मेहनत सभी करके आते हैं. इस दुनिया में एक से एक एथलीट है जो मेहनत करते हैं, लेकिन हमेशा वो दिन डिसाइड करता है कि क्या होता है. हमारा बस काम होता है कि अपना उस दिन 100% दें, और बाकी ऊपर वाले का साथ रहता है, सभी की प्रे होती हैं, और उस दिन रिजल्ट क्या होता है, क्या रहता है.
बिल्कुल. और अब तो ऐसा लग रहा है कि 1, 2, 3 भी जैवलिन में भारत से ही होगा. अभी कंपटीशन घर पे ही है. एशियन गेम में भी हमने देखा कांटे की टक्कर आपके 2 भारतीयों के बीच में हो रही थी.
नहीं सर, बहुत अच्छा था जिस तरीके से किशोर ने थ्रो लगाया. बिल्कुल मैं चाहता था कि किशोर का भी एक ड्रीम था कि ओलंपिक क्वालिफाई करे, लेकिन जिस तरीके का किशोर ने थ्रो किया और 2 पर्सनल बेस्ट किए, 87 मीटर का थ्रो किया, तो मतलब अमेजिंग था. और ये मुझे लगता है कि जिस तरीके से ना केवल किशोर, जैसे वर्ल्ड एथलेटिक्स में भी मनु डीपी ने बहुत अच्छे थ्रो किए थे, रोहित ने इस साल 83, मतलब हमारे पास काफी अच्छे जेवलिन थ्रोअर्स, ना केवल जेवलिन थ्रोअर्स, बाकी एथलेटिक्स इवेंट्स में जिस तरीके से एथलीट उभर के आ रहे हैं और वर्ल्ड क्लास की परफॉर्मेंस दे रहे हैं. और वही हम हमेशा बात करते हैं. आदित्य सर के साथ और बनोट सर के साथ भी बात हुई थी कि आगे के लिए जो सबसे मेन फोकस रहेगा कि इंटरनेशनल इवेंट्स इंडिया में हो तो और ज्यादा मजा आएगा, ताकि अपने लोग भी देख पाए कि हमारे एथलीट्स में कितनी कैपेबिलिटी है।
जी नीरज, आप मेरे साथ बने रहिए। मैं गौरव के पास जाऊं उससे पहले आदिल सुमारीवाला जी से मैं पूछना चाहूंगा कि 8-10 साल 8-10 years आदिल जी that this mehnat has happened. I remember back in 2012 around London Olympics and also before that Commonwealth Games, one would rue the fact that track and field is not getting the focus. Middle distance, our shot putters, javelin throwers should get more opportunity. So a decade later, we've grown leaps and bounds, isn't it? I remember having that conversation with you, Adilji. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. So you know what happened was I took over as presidency in 2012, and we all sat down. It was absolutely teamwork with the coaches, athletes, foreign experts, etc. And we drew out a blueprint. And it was a three Olympic cycle blueprint where we identified certain events. And I must honestly tell you that when javelin was identified as an event, I was thinking twice, and I was questioning people who said that javelin could become an event for India. And I said, but we don't have the big boys, we don't have the 6'3" and the broad shoulders. And they came back to me saying, we don't need that. It's a technical event. If you can do your technique right, and if you can have speed, and Neeraj has proved he's got both. He's got the technique and the speed. His coach today is a biomechanics expert. So what we did is we identified whether it was long jump, triple jump, Sri Shankar, Chitravel, whether it was middle and long distance running. We had 3 foreign coaches. Presently, Scott Simmons is the coach of Parul, Neeraj, etc. We've sent them for training abroad. So we did a lot of work, and it took us 3 cycles. And I'll give you a quick thing. 2012, we had 12 athletes who qualified for London Olympics. Rio, we had double the number. In Tokyo, we have triple the number. And that shows the progress, that shows the bench strength, and that shows us that we are probably on the right track. We had a lot of failures, I must say, but we have the highest number of medals ever in the Asian Games. Last Commonwealth Games, we had the highest number of medals in the last Commonwealth Games. The Asian Athletic Championships, we had the highest number of medals. At the Asian Athletics Championships, we have a gold through Neeraj at the Olympics, and we hope that this trend will continue.
True, and if that trend continues, that makes for a very strong case, Gaurav Kalra, for us.
Yes, and Anand, I think it's important to reiterate why the session that's starting in a couple of days is extremely important, because it engages India at a much deeper level with the Olympic movement than it has in the past. Now, the previous session was 40 years ago. I think Adil was an early in his sprinting career at that time, and since then, I think India's been a marginal Olympic nation. Let's be honest and admit that. But subsequently, and it's just such an honor to be, on the same screen as Neeraj Chopra, because it is men like him, athletes such as him, and of course Abhinav Bindra before that, who've by sheer dint of their skill and the support that they've had, that Adil was referring to, have made that leap into world-class performers. But that consistency is now going to result in many, many more athletes coming through, and I think that journey India is very much on the path of. So the Olympic session, which is a re-engagement with the Olympic movement, actually sends that message into the world that this is a significant pit stop, but a very important moment from where the takeoff can happen. And see, Anand, the great cities in the world have hosted the Olympics in the past. You look back on London, LA, which has held it in the past, Tokyo previously, and now we are headed to a situation where an Indian city will host the Olympic Games, which is really the most significant sporting event in the world. Yes, there is the Football World Cup and all of that, but there is nothing that matches the aura of the Olympics. And I think this session that is bringing the Olympic movement to India in the next couple of days is going to be the kickstart for many, many great things. And I hope that in 2036, we're going to see Neeraj Chopra lift his 4th consecutive gold medal at the Olympic Games.
No, we should, and we should have Kishore Jaina. I think I just saw him there, and we just lost Kishore Jaina. We'll try and get him back with us. But, Gaurav, There are both the people who are right now with us. I'm very proud to share the screen with them, aside of you and me, because Adil Somariwala ran when nobody else was looking and nobody was running at that time. And Neeraj Chopra is throwing the javelin and inspiring so many others to take the track and field. So they both have done inspiring, phenomenal work, and they continue to do that off the track and on the tracks, and that's what's so inspiring. But there is another person who I'm very inspired by, who's joining us now on a quick question with her. Anju Bobby George, Senior VP AFI, is with us. She's in Mumbai at this point, and perhaps will be part of these conversations of the IOC session. My first question to you, Anjuji, thank you very much for joining us. Is India ready to host the Olympics sometime in the future? 2036 Ahmedabad.
Why not? So India is going to be a superpower, as we all know, and see the way how we are connected with other countries politically and financially also. I can say that we are stable. Even during Corona, I think one of the best countries who managed well was India. So why not? It's a possibility, and we can try for it. And I think the recent happenings, everything is positive for India. And most of the other countries are, because of financial problems, they are backing up from major championships. But I don't think, and I don't feel that India will be like, in my opinion, we are all set for that. But when that's the question.
हाँ, 13 साल रुकना पड़ेगा, पर नीरज आपको कुछ लगता है कुछ हमें और करने की ज़रूरत है जब हम दावेदारी ठोक? किशोर जेना हमारे साथ हैं, किशोर जेना से भी मैं पूछ लेता हूँ. किशोर जेना, अभी मैं बात कर रहा था नीरज चोपड़ा से भी, मैंने कहा कि जैवलिन में लग रहा है 1, 2, 3 अब हम ही लेके जाने वाले हैं, सब हमारी तरफ ही आने वाला है, आप लोग आपस में कम्पीट कर रहे हैं. कंग्रेचुलेशंस ऑन द सिल्वर मेडल. बट भारत में ओलंपिक्स, इंटरनेशनल ओलंपिक कमेटी का सेशन हो रहा है 15 से 17 के बीच में. भारत दावेदारी कर रहा है कि वी वांट टू होस्ट द ओलंपिक्स सम टाइम इन 2036 परहैप्स, उसकी दावेदारी कर रहे हैं. योर थॉट्स किशोर?
नमस्ते सर.
नमस्ते
सभी को नमस्ते. आप तो देखे इंडिया भी स्पोर्ट्स में कितना आगे जा चुका है और भी आगे करेगा, क्योंकि एएफआई, साई एंड स्पॉन्सर सारे बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं और हम भी और अच्छा करेंगे आगे, क्योंकि हमको भी पूरा सपोर्ट मिल रहा है एएफआई से, तो और भी अच्छा करेंगे हम भी.
नीता अंबानी जी रिलायंस फाउंडेशन से जुड़ी है, आईओसी की मेंबर है. रिलायंस फाउंडेशन के एथलीट्स जो हैं उन्होंने 11% जो 13% मेडल्स में जीते भी हैं. ये कॉर्पोरेट सपोर्ट कितने मायने रखता है किशोर जी? आप एक बात बताइए. चाहे कोई भी सपोर्ट करे, चाहे रिलायंस फाउंडेशन हो या जेएसडब्ल्यू हो या जो भी हो, ओजीक्यू हो, बहुत सारे ऐसे ग्रुप्स हैं जो सपोर्ट करते हैं. इससे कितना फर्क पड़ता है?
सर फर्क पड़ता है बहुत सारा, क्योंकि जैसे मिडिल क्लास फैमिली से फिर कुछ स्पोर्ट्स में करना होता है तो उसका पीछे तो काफ़ी लगता है, पैसे भी, फाइनेंशियली भी लगता है. तो ये सारा चीज़ जो ये लोग रिलायंस फाउंडेशन से करते हैं, ये थोड़ा हमारा टेंशन कम हो जाता है इसमें, तो हम ज़्यादा फोकस कर पाते हैं गेम में. ये चीज़ थोड़ा अच्छा लगता है.
सरकार की तरफ से टॉप स्कीम आता है नीरज, कॉर्पोरेट्स की तरफ से हेल्प आता है, आर्मी भी आपको बैक करती है, फौज भी बैक करती है. ये आपका टेंशन कम करता है, जैसे किशोर कह रहे हैं?
बिल्कुल जी, जैसा कि बिल्कुल किशोर ने बताया, जो खिलाड़ी है ज़्यादातर अपने यहाँ से, तो वो बिल्कुल नॉर्मल क्लास और बिल्कुल मिडिल क्लास फैमिली से बिलोंग करते हैं और काफ़ी प्रॉब्लम रहती है, क्योंकि फैमिली प्रॉब्लम है, वहाँ भी देखना है और अपना स्पोर्ट्स भी करना है. तो बिल्कुल जो स्पॉन्सर्स होते हैं और जिस तरीके से गवर्नमेंट अभी सपोर्ट कर रहा है, फेडरेशन सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, तो उसके हिसाब से हमारा पूरा फोकस अभी स्पोर्ट्स की तरफ है. तो पहले काफ़ी दिक्कत आती है एथलीट्स को, लेकिन जिस तरीके से अभी हर चीज़ बदल रही है और आप रिजल्ट्स भी देख सकते हैं किस तरीके से फियरलेस एथलीट वहाँ पे परफॉर्म करते हैं. तो बिल्कुल ये बहुत ही अच्छा अभी अपना जो स्पोर्ट्स है वो बहुत अच्छी डायरेक्शन में जा रहा है और रिजल्ट्स भी दिख रहे हैं, तो वो तो सभी को पता है.
IOC की मेंबर रही है अंजू बाबू जॉर्ज. I just want to quickly ask you, Neeta Ambani ji has been a member of the IOC since 2016. She's done some phenomenal work, not just to champion the Olympic movement across the world and also in Bharat, but also push for India's position.
In my opinion, in my understanding, she is doing really well, and she is one of the main face in IOC. And see now, the summit is happening in Mumbai. It's already started. 14th is inauguration, but dignitaries are already here.
Yes.
And as a business family, for them it's very easy because normally the country will do, but here the Reliance actually they came forward and they are doing it, and in such a big way, such a wonderful way. And our Prime Minister is going to inaugurate that on 5th, 14th. So I guess the way how they are supporting sports, the infrastructure and the academy also, Reliance Foundation is also doing really well. They are supporting athletes, and their branch is actually in our academy also. Athletes are training in my academy also. So in that sense, they are doing really a lot of work for sports and a lot of support for sports.
देखिए 2036 किशोर तो हम बात करेंगे, अपनी बात रखेंगे, क्योंकि अभी तो फैसला नहीं होगा, लेकिन 2028 में आपको लगता है क्रिकेट को ओलंपिक्स में शामिल कर लेना चाहिए? देखिए सब लोग कहते हैं, लोग क्रिकेट की बात करते हैं, दूसरे स्पोर्ट की बात नहीं करते, लेकिन ओलंपिक्स में देखा जाए तो बाकी सब स्पोर्ट्स हैं लेकिन क्रिकेट नहीं है।
नहीं सर, हर स्पोर्ट्स को सपोर्ट करना चाहिए, और खिलाड़ी तो हमारे लिए सारे सेम ही है। तो इंडिया गवर्नमेंट को जैसे लगता है अच्छा करना चाहिए खिलाड़ी के लिए, तो वो अच्छा ही करेंगे सर। हम इसमें तो अच्छा ही करेंगे।
अगर खेलते हैं तो अच्छा करेंगे, उनकी व्यूवरशिप भी आएगी ओलंपिक्स के अंदर। और मैं जैसे अभी थोड़ी देर पहले नीरज को कह रहा था कि 2 गोल्ड पक्के हो जाते हैं, एक क्रिकेट में और दूसरा फिर जैवलिन में। वो भले ही आप
और भी आ सकता है, और भी
तो आएंगे। आदिल जी wanted to say something. Yes, Adil ji.
No, what I wanted to say was something very simple. Yes, cricket should absolutely be included, but look at the winds of change. Today, cricketers are lining up to take pictures with Neeraj.
Exactly.
Something like this never happened in the past. So that's the wind of change, and that's the new India we are talking about.
करेक्ट। किसी दिन कुछ क्रिकेटर्स से किशोर आपको भाला फेंकवाना चाहिए, यानी कि आप मैं बस आपसे और नीरज से ये पूछना चाहता हूँ, अगर किसी क्रिकेटर, अगर मैं आपको चॉइस दूं कि किसी से आप कहें कि आओ भाई ये भाला उठाओ और मेरी तरफ फेंक के दिखाओ, तो आप किसको कहना चाहोगे किशोर?
नहीं सर, मैं क्रिकेट देखता नहीं हूँ।
अच्छा, आप क्रिकेट देखते ही नहीं है? अरे वाह। तो आप कौन सा स्पोर्ट फॉलो करते हैं? वॉलीबॉल। वेरी गुड।
किशोर जिना जेवलिन से पहले वॉलीबॉल ही खेलता बड़ा अच्छा, तो इसलिए वॉलीबॉल का बड़ा
मैं स्कूल और कॉलेज में वॉलीबॉल खेलता था, उसके बाद छूट गया, थोड़ा लंबा उसी की वजह से हूँ। अच्छा, बट नीरज मैं आपसे पूछूं तो आप तो बहुत सारे क्रिकेटर से मिले होंगे, किसी ने पूछा है कि भाई ये जैवलिन मुझे फेंकना सिखाओ?
काफी मुझे ही बोलते हैं कि बॉलिंग करो नीरज, आपके फास्ट आर्म है, लेकिन हमारी टेक्निक बिल्कुल अलग होती है। बट मैं किसी फास्ट बॉलर को ही चुनूंगा, क्योंकि उनको थोड़ा पता होता है फेंकने का भी कि किस तरीके से बॉल फेंकना है। तो बिल्कुल जसप्रीत बुमराह, या फिर अगर बैट्समैन की बात करें तो महेंद्र सिंह धोनी या विराट भाई को चुनेंगे कि आओ जी एक बार ट्राई करो।
हाँ, विराट भाई से या महेंद्र सिंह धोनी से कहेंगे कि आओ जी एक बार ट्राई करो। चलिए ये बात भी उनकी तरफ पहुंचा देते हैं। Let's just quickly want to ask Anju Bobby George, cricket and some of the other sports are under consideration for Las Vegas 2028. Do you think we'll be able to convince the IOC to think about cricket for 2028?
Yeah, definitely cricket is going to be in, but only my worry is that whether our main team will go for that. Because in Asian Games also, though we got the goal, both the teams actually main players were away. But still, if we can win a goal, then it's fine. Otherwise, in Olympics, I think that won't be the story. We need to pitch our best athletes, because the medal actually for every country is very precious, and they will come for that and they will deliver their best. So we also need to put our best team for that. So if cricket is there, I think one goal we can at least expect.
Not one. Now we've got javelin also, so we'll have 2 gold. But Gaurav Kalra, will Bharat field its best team if cricket is included? And somewhere Mrs. Neeta Mani can have a very strong voice in making sure that happens.
I think that India will want to field its best team. I think obviously the Asian Games this time around meant that because it was so close to the World Cup, they were needing to have to make that choice. But for instance, at the Commonwealth Games last time around, when only women's cricket was part of the program, the full strength Indian team played, reached the final, lost to England unfortunately. But the Olympics is the pinnacle of sport. There is no question that even, for instance, if you look down the track, 2028 is about what, 5 years away. Virat Kohli will be about 39 years old. It might be the last feather in his cap that he's looking for. An Olympic medal. I mean, to be in, among the elite of world sport, not so much just of his sport, which, let's be honest, is a tiny sport played by a few countries to a very high level of skill, as opposed to what Neeraj and Kishore do. But I think what's important to remember, Anand, and I think it's important to sort of circle back to this, is that the baseline is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I continue to see videos that I think Kishore and Neeraj see this every day, that there are young kids now throwing the javelin to very impressive distances, and we are seeing 14, 15-year-olds, age group competitions, well managed, well organized. And I think that corporate structure as well as the government support is making that baseline very strong, which means that you can have a competition at the Asian Games where the Olympic champion, that is Neeraj Chopra, is really challenged by a countryman. And then they get into this duel, which Neeraj then wins, which is such an exhilarating moment for Indian sports. So I think we are building towards sporting powerhouse is a...
Absolutely. I've run out of time. I've run out of time.
Expression,
but I think what's happened is with Khelo India, that there is a movement that started at the grassroots and which needs to continue. To all my panelists, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to speak with all of you, and fingers crossed on good tidings for us post the 17th. Not just for cricket, but more importantly for Bharat hosting the Olympics. Some talk there on that front. Winding up this edition of The Right Stand on that note, brass tacks with Zaka.
Saturday's attack by Hamas marked the worst breach in Israel's defenses in decades. According to a Reuters source, Hamas deployed a force of about 1,000 fighters, organized into specialized units. They've been training in Gaza since the last conflict in 2021, sometimes in plain sight, the source said. Here's how they managed to catch Israel off guard. This footage released by the armed wing of Hamas is said to show fighters training ahead of the operation. They're using paragliders, and a source says their exercises included building a mock Israeli settlement to practice a military landing. Reuters could not verify the date and locations of the videos, but the training would have come amid a careful campaign of deception by Hamas, which had convinced Israel that it did not want to fight. It refrained from military operations against Israel and was careful about leaks. Even many Hamas leaders weren't aware of the plans, according to the Reuters source. A spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Forces admits they were surprised. Hamas separated its fighters into several specialized groups to carry out the attack in the air and on the ground. It fired thousands of rockets at around 6:30 a.m. on Saturday. The bombardment was intended to cause shock and confusion, while providing Hamas fighters with cover to break the fortified fence surrounding Gaza. Teams of fighters on hang gliders, or motorized paragliders, flew over the border and secured terrain for the main ground assault. A 400-strong elite force on the ground attacked the fortified Gaza fence. Videos issued by Hamas are said to show fighters breaching the security fences. It also released video of drones it says it used for border surveillance. The final part involved moving hostages to Gaza, mostly achieved early in the attack, a source close to Hamas said. In one well-publicized hostage-taking, fighters abducted partygoers fleeing a rave near the kibbutz of Re'im near Gaza. One analyst told Reuters that Hamas probably succeeded beyond their expectation, but now they'll have to, quote, deal with an Israel determined to decimate them.
Good evening. It's day 6 of the Israel-Hamas war. More than 2,000 different locations have been hit by air in Gaza. Now, Israel is also preparing for a massive ground operation. While the objective of this operation, this counteroffensive from Israel, is very clear. That is to militarily annihilate Hamas, to ensure that Hamas does not ever dare to attack another Israeli civilian or citizen. But what happens after that? What happens after Hamas is cut off its knees? What happens after that is unclear.